I'm Adrian Malleson, and I'm the Head of Economic Research and Analysis at the RIBA. We thought it would be useful to give a bit of an oversight of what's happening in the construction industry and in the architects market to help inform some of your decisions as construction product manufacturers. Firstly, first presentation, I'll look at the economic context. Of course, the highest effect on our economy is COVID-19. It started in China and moved to Italy, and then very quickly it's moved to the UK and across the globe. I think as it's a global pandemic, we are seeing global effects to the world economy. This slide is brought to you by the IMF with their World Economic Outlook. They're predicting a contraction of the global economy, something which hasn't happened for many years, with the advanced economies worst hit an average contraction of 8% in 2020, with a recovery they forecast of around 4.8% next year. We're starting to see what that means in detail for the UK. Their latest forecast predicts an overall 10% drop in the UK economy this year, with a recovery of around 6% next year. So certainly not sufficient to make up the ground we've lost this year. The loss to the economy is concentrated in the first half of the year. We can see here UK GDP fell by around 21% in the second quarter. We're seeing growth return in the third quarter, and the Bank of England expect that growth to continue into Q4. But again, it's not sufficient to make up the ground lost, and it is dependent on there not being a second lockdown, something we can't, of course, be certain of. Just to have a look at their slightly longer term forecast from the Bank of England. What we can see there is that the Bank of England project a very sharp contraction this year of something around 10%, and then picking up again through 21, 22 and 23. But I think you can see in that graph it's really 2 or 3 years where we'll be below our economic output that we were prior to the crisis. Of course, we can't forget that all this is happening in the context of an increasingly high likelihood, it would seem, of a no deal, no transition Brexit. The last time the Bank of England forecast for that, and it was some time ago, prior to the COVID-19 crisis, they were describing GDP falling by around 5%, inflation going up to about 5.25%, and unemployment rising to 7%. If we add those figures to the projections we now have for the UK economy, simply because of COVID-19, the need to avoid a no-deal Brexit becomes, I would suggest, extremely clear. That's why the RIBA consistently argues that no deal is not an option for UK architecture. I think now just moving on from the general economy, looking at construction output. More specifically, construction output fell by around 10.5% in the 3 months of July 2020 compared with the previous 3-month period. New work was notably down by nearly 10%. Every sector fell apart from infrastructure. And the largest negative contributor was private new housing, which fell by about 17%. That was very much as work stopped on the ground. Construction output just couldn't happen. It's coming back now, but with reduced productivity because of social distancing measures on the ground. But nevertheless, we're beginning to see a pickup, and I'll talk a bit more about private housing when we look at the architectural market. Construction output, when we start to look at a month by month, you can see that very rapid, almost 40% fall in April as lockdown bit, and then output increasing month on month through May, June and July. At the moment, construction output is around 10% lower, over $1 billion lower than it was in February 2020.